It is sometimes hard to remember how easy life was before the world changed. Now people are starving in the streets, and those with the will to fight back are imprisoned, or worse. Where am I?
In hell. We shall yield to nothing but bayonets!
The life I had is gone.
Your father was an assassin, Arno.
The world I knew with it.
Father?
He gave his life, fighting for the liberty of all mankind.
Are you prepared to travel the Eagle's path?
Boys ready?
Rise, assassin.
Amongst the violence.
The vote is cast, Grandmaster. The king will die.
Amongst the chaos.
Honor your father's memory.
I will find justice no matter the cost.
This is why I joined the Brotherhood.
For revenge.
For redemption.
Monsieur Maximilien de Robespierre.
I will never talk.
Marquis de Sade.
You used me.
We used one another.
You're the only one who can save the Brotherhood?
We can, together.
It happens tonight.
Please.
You want to protect me?
I want to help you.
Nicely done, my friend.
If you don't have the stomach for revenge, then I don't need your help.
We've been betrayed from within. Conspiracy. Intrigue.
I have to do this myself.
So Ubisoft just did something that honestly a lot of people have been begging for years.
Oh, really?
They finally updated Assassin's Creed Unity for modern console, PS5, Xbox Series X, the whole thing. And the headline feature here is simple, but huge. The game now runs at 4K and 60 frames per second. Now, on paper, that might not sound like a massive deal. I mean, we hear about 60 frames per second patches all the time, but with this particular game, it actually changes everything. Because Unity was always one of those titles that felt like it was ahead of its hardware when it first launched. Back in 2014, the ambition of this game was honestly kind of insane. We're talking about a massive recreation of revolutionary Paris, thousands of NPCs on screen during riot, interiors you could enter across huge parts of the city, and one of the most advanced animation systems Ubisoft had ever built. The problem? The hardware at the time simply couldn't keep up, so the original version ran at 30 frames per second, and even then, it struggled. Input felt heavy, animations sometimes looked sluggish, and the game got absolutely roasted at launch because of bugs and performance problems. But now, running at 60 frames per second on PS5, suddenly you realize something. This might actually be the version of the game Ubisoft originally wanted people to experience. Because the first thing you notice when you boot it up now is the gameplay just feels right. Unity was never meant to be a hack-and-slash RPG like the newer Assassin's Creed games. It was designed as a stealth sandbox. You're supposed to study an area, plan your approach, and execute the assassination like an actual assassin. And the missions reflect that. You can infiltrate through rooftops, slip through crowds, sneak through interiors, or trigger environmental assassinations. There are multiple entry points and opportunities in most of the major missions, but when the game was stuck at 30 frames per second, everything felt slower than it should. Now at 60 frames per second, parkour chains together smoothly, combat reads better, and stealth actually feels precise. The entire control system just becomes more responsive. And it really highlights something a lot of people forgot about Unity. This game had some of the deepest mission design in the entire franchise.
Honor your father's memory.
I will find justice no matter the cost.
This is why I joined the Brotherhood.
For revenge.
For redemption.
Monsieur Maximilien de Robespierre.
Now let's talk about the story for a second, because Unity's narrative is honestly underrated. You play as Arno Dorian, an assassin navigating the chaos of the French Revolution. But unlike other games in the series that jump across continents and conspiracies, this one stays pretty focused. It's really a personal story about loyalty, revenge, and Arno's relationship with Elite. Instead of feeling like a massive globe-trotting adventure, it plays more like a historical drama unfolding inside one city. And that actually works in its favor, because when you combine that with the motion motion capture performances, the characters still feel incredibly natural even today, and that's another area where Unity still stands out. The motion capture work in this game is ridiculously good. Facial performances, body language, small gestures during conversations. Ubisoft treated these scenes almost like they were filming actors for a movie. A lot of modern open-world games rely heavily on procedural dialogue systems now, where characters just kind of stand there talking. Unity went all in on performance capture, and 12 years later, it still holds up surprisingly well. But honestly, the real star of this game has always been the animation system. Ubisoft built an entirely new system for Unity that allowed thousands of transitions between movements. Instead of snapping between animations, everything blends together. So when Arno vaults over an object, climbs a wall, slides under something, or launches into an assassination, it all flows naturally. At the time, it was incredibly ambitious, maybe too ambitious for the hardware, but on PS5 with the higher frame rate, you finally see what they were going for. And that brings us to what many people still consider the best parkour system the series ever had. Unity introduced the parkour up and parkour down mechanic. That might sound simple, but it changed everything. Instead of awkwardly falling off buildings like earlier games, Arno can descend structures fluidly, sliding down signs, bouncing off ledges, grabbing objects on the way down.
Parkour! Parkour! Parkour!
So let's talk about something that used to be the identity of Assassin's Creed, parkour. When Ubisoft first showed the world Assassin's Creed back in 2007, the thing that immediately stood out wasn't just the hidden blades or the historical setting. It was movement, running across rooftops, leaping between buildings, swinging from beams, climbing walls like gravity barely applied. It looked fluid. It looked athletic. It looked like something we hadn't really seen before in open-world games. You could actually trace a bit of that DNA back to Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. That game had wall running, acrobatics, and environmental movement baked into its design. But Assassin's Creed took that idea and fully built a game around it. Traversal wasn't just how you moved from point A to point B. Traversal was the gameplay. The rooftops were your highways, the streets were dangerous, and learning how to move efficiently across the city was part of becoming a better assassin. But somewhere along the way, that identity slowly started to fade. In many of the newer games, parkour basically became automated. You hold the trigger, push forward, and the character just kind of climbs whatever is in front of them. No precision, no mastery, just movement on autopilot, which is exactly why Assassin's Creed Unity still stands out. Ask almost any longtime fan what the best parkour system in the series is, and Unity comes up almost immediately. At first, it's not perfect. In fact, learning it can be a little frustrating. Sometimes Arno grabs onto architecture you didn't intend. Sometimes the stickiness of certain ledges makes you want to throw the controller. But once you actually understand the system, something clicks, and suddenly Paris becomes a playground. You start chaining movements together. Arno launches off a ledge, barely grabbing the edge of a balcony. He slides across a railing, backflips through a window frame, ducks under carts in the street, then launches right back onto a rooftop again. Animation after animation flows together, and when you really get into it, there's almost this meditative rhythm to it. You stop thinking about the controls. You just move. That flow state is something the later games never quite captured again. Because in Unity, parkour requires your input and precision as the player. You're not just holding a button and watching an animation play. You're actively guiding every jump, every climb, every descent, and that makes the traversal feel engaging instead of passive. Now, to be fair, Unity is far from a perfect game. The story sometimes struggles to fully capture the incredible historical drama of the French Revolution. Characters are performed well, but the narrative can feel disjointed at times. Combat can also be rough. Animations occasionally glitch, controls can feel imprecise, and fights sometimes look a little janky. But even with those flaws, Unity still does several things better than almost any other Assassin's Creed game. The visual presentation, the dense city design, the immersive stealth gameplay, and of course, that incredible parkour system. It really feels like a moment where Ubisoft genuinely pushed themselves. Yes, the launch back in 2014 was rough. Bugs everywhere, performance issues, the internet absolutely tearing the game apart. But if you play it today, fully patched, running smoothly on modern hardware, you start to see something else. You see what Ubisoft was actually capable of. And that's what makes the whole thing a little bittersweet. Because once upon a time, Ubisoft was a smaller studio making memorable games like Prince of Persia. Back then, when you saw that Ubisoft swirl logo, it actually meant something exciting. Now, when people see that logo, the reaction is a little more complicated, because the company grew into this massive global publisher, and somewhere along the way, the unique stealth series about assassins and Templars slowly transformed into a massive transmedia franchise. Bigger worlds, more games, more monetization, but not always better design. And while Ubisoft still has incredibly talented developers across its studios, corporate decisions and constant pressure to release more titles sometimes hold those teams back from creating something truly inspired. That's why there's been some cautious optimism around Assassin's Creed Mirage. The team at Ubisoft Bordeaux clearly tried to bring the series back to its roots. A smaller scope, stealth-focused gameplay, a return to the core fantasy of being an assassin. It might not be perfect, and you can definitely feel the budget constraints, but many fans say it's the closest the franchise has felt to a classic Assassin's Creed experience since Unity. And maybe that's the lesson here.
That freedom, alongside randomized ingredients such as guards, locations, paths, or rewards, ensure each new playthrough is different.
And there's another thing about Assassin's Creed Unity that people honestly don't talk about enough anymore: the multiplayer co-op. Because when this game was originally revealed, that was actually one of the big headline features. Ubisoft showed 4 assassins moving through Paris together, and the idea was simple but really cool. What if Assassin's Creed wasn't just one lone wolf running across rooftops? What if it actually felt like a brotherhood? And Unity was the first time the series really tried to do that. You and 3 other players can jump into co-op missions across Paris. Everyone is basically their own version of Arno. Customized gear, different builds, different playstyle. And the missions themselves are built around teamwork. One player might be sneaking through the crowd, another is already up on the rooftops scouting. Someone else is distracting guards near the entrance. And then suddenly, all 4 players converge on the target at the same time. Boom. Synchronized assassinations. And when it works, it feels incredible. It genuinely feels like a planned assassination operation. The missions are designed with multiple paths too, which fits perfectly with the design philosophy of Unity. You can sneak through underground tunnels, climb across rooftops, blend into crowds, or split up to handle different objectives. Sometimes one player opens a gate while another infiltrates the building. Sometimes one assassin causes chaos while the others move quietly toward the target. It creates these little emergent moments where the game suddenly feels like a stealth movie. And what's crazy is you can technically play these missions solo, but you can tell they were designed with multiple players in mind. The levels feel like puzzles where coordination makes everything smoother. And honestly, when you look at the franchise today, it's kind of wild that Ubisoft never really returned to this idea. Later games went deeper into RPG systems, bigger maps, longer campaigns. But Unity was the one time the series actually explored the fantasy of a team of assassins working together. Not competitive multiplayer, not PvP modes, just a group of assassins planning and executing missions as a unit. And with the PS5 running the game at 60 frames per second now, the co-op actually feels smoother than it ever did back in 2014. Parkour flows better, combat is more readable, stealth timing is tighter, so those co-op moments feel way less clunky and way more cinematic, which honestly just reinforces the thing a lot of players have been saying lately. Unity wasn't just ambitious, it was trying ideas the series still hasn't fully explored again. A dense city built for parkour, stealth missions designed like puzzles, and a brotherhood of assassins actually working together. 12 years later, that still feels pretty special.
Return fire! Now!
Now let's jump to something interesting when you compare Assassin's Creed Unity to the newest entry, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Because visually, Shadows is stunning. The lighting is incredible. The environments look beautiful. Feudal Japan is rendered with insane detail. Forests move with the wind. Villages feel alive. And the overall presentation is clearly built for modern hardware. But then you get into the cutscenes, and something immediately feels off. The facial animations, characters talk, their mouths move. The dialogue is there, but the expressions just don't carry the same weight. The subtle emotion is missing. Eyes feel stiff. Facial muscles barely react to what's being said. And the reason for that is pretty simple. A lot of those scenes aren't fully motion captured. Instead, they rely heavily on procedural animation systems, basically software-driven facial rigs that try to simulate expressions automatically rather than capturing real actors performing the scene. And technically, it works. But emotionally, it's not the same, because when you go back to something like Assassin's Creed Unity, you immediately notice the difference. Those scenes were heavily performance captured. Actors weren't just reading lines into a microphone. Their body language, facial expressions, subtle movements, all of that was recorded and translated into the characters. So when someone is angry, you see it in their eyes. When someone hesitates, their face reacts naturally. It feels human. And that's the thing about mocap. No matter how advanced procedural animation gets, human performances are still incredibly hard to fake, which is why it's kind of ironic. A 12-year-old game like Unity can still have more convincing character performances than a brand new, technically superior title. Shadows looks incredible from a graphical standpoint, but when it comes to the small details that sell emotion in storytelling, the things that make characters feel alive, sometimes the older approach still wins, because technology keeps evolving, but human performance is still king.